Here from 5:30 till 6, unless we go over, we're going to be doing the regular steering meeting. At 6 o'clock, or whenever we're done with the steering committee part, then we'll have our delegates come up here. I'll probably call a 5-minute recess and let everybody get set up, and then we'll start our questions on the delegates. But we're going to start off with our agenda. I'm going to roll call, Rachel.
Commissioner Beverly?
Here.
Commissioner Paul Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Cush?
Present.
Commissioner McAdoo? Here. Commissioner Reed?
Here.
Commissioner Rather?
Here.
Chairman Harris?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Let's approve our minutes from last meeting. I call on Vice Chair Pettis-Reed.
Mr. Chairman, I have read through the minutes. I found no problems. I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Cush. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, let's move on. We're going to go to public comments. We have one person. It is a Matt Fee, and he will be discussing our meeting with the delegates. So if Mr. Fee here, you got
It has 3 minutes. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Fee, and I live on Winding Branch Drive in Christiana. I'm here tonight to discuss a few items that I would like to hear discussed tonight with our representatives from the state legislature. I could stand here for over an hour and discuss things that I think should or should not be happening in our capital, but I will focus on items that would influence Rutherford County. Tonight, I suspect that there will be much discussion about the proposal for the state to give the county the ability to impose impact fees on development. Many others and I here tonight have filled out the survey from the county showing our support for this solution that is long overdue. The mayor reported at the recent roadmap meeting that without impact fees, the county will be left with no other alternatives but to have a, quote, extreme cut to services. I'm here to tell you there are other ways that this county commission could advocate to the state to offset increases to property taxes and provide assistance back to the taxpayers of Rutherford County, especially those that are most impacted by our regressive tax policies. First, the commission could send a resolution of support for the repeal of the Tennessee's 4% tax on food purchased at grocery store that could easily be paid for by requiring highly profitable corporations in Tennessee that pay $0 in taxes to pay their share and save residents here in the county several $100s per year. Second, the commission could send a resolution of support for the expansion of Medicaid here in our state. This would immediately help many families in our county with increased access to preventative care, as well as improved mortality rates and decreases the risk of crushing medical debt and bankruptcy. Expansion has also been shown to help fight against the opioid crisis. Third, the commission could send a resolution requesting that the state fully fund universal free school breakfast and lunch. Here in Rutherford County, the cost for a full year of lunch for one student is roughly $600, and if you include breakfast every day, that cost reaches almost $1,000. Not only does this provide a big savings for the people of Rutherford County, but could help with attendance, test scores, graduation rates, and self-esteem. Instead of reducing services here in the county, if we are unable to achieve impact fees, I would ask the commission instead pivot and instruct the lobbyists to begin lobbying for these reliefs for the citizens of Rutherford County. In fact, they're so good and needed that we should probably do it anyways. One other item I would like, or I hope that the commission could address with the legislators. Recently, a bill was filed in the House, HB 1661, which has striking similarities to the Altman resolution in Wichita Falls, Texas, which used a petition system to remove books from libraries. Please look it up. When challenged in court, it was deemed unconstitutional, just as I'm sure HB 1661 will no doubt be found. Please stop wasting our
Thank you, sir. All right, let's move on to the agenda. We need to confirm Charlie Teasley to the CCRC Board of Directors to fill retiring member term to expire July 1st, 2024. Do I have a motion? So moved, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Cush, do I have a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Let's move on. Next, we want to confirm Commissioner Jonathan Beverly to fill the Agricultural Advisory Board Commissioner vacancy, 2-year term, January 2024 to January 2026. Do I have a motion? I have Commissioner Reed. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Cush. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, Jonathan. Next, we want to confirm Veronica Buchanan for 1 farm woman vacancy for the Agricultural Advisory Board vacancy, 2-year term, January 2024 to January 2026. I have a motion from Mr. Johnson, second from Commissioner Beverly. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Move on. Next, I want to move over to HR reports. I'll ask Sonia Stevenson if she's here to come up.
Good evening. Hope everybody had a happy new year. So you should find on your iPads the HR snapshot, and I ended up putting up the entire year. Normally I just give you the month that we're in, but I wanted you to see the totals for the year as well. Some of the highlights are for the month of December. For ADA, we had 28 accommodations that we made for employees. Excuse me, that was wrong. We made 2 accommodation for employees, and we had 2 courtroom assist. In the personnel changes, we had 16 promotions. We did 8 public service loan forgiveness, and we had 7 military credit applications with TCRS. We did not have any audits in December. For benefits, the big items were TCRS applications. Those are people who are retiring, asking to retire in the month of December, so we had 7 retirements. Community involvement, the number, these are where the employees within our office, they go out to different events, whether it's the chamber, Read to Succeed, do mock interviews in schools. We had 14 of those activities. The big event that we had this year was the Christmas tree lighting event was in December, and we had 33 people participate in that, and that's our local public safety, myself, and some other volunteers from MTSU. Under leave, our largest category would be the FMLA. We have 92 active FMLAs right now, and we have 24 active military leaves. Legal services, we have 11 different items under that category, and that may be where we're investigating Title VI issues or ADA issues. Offboarding and turnover, the biggest was we had 19 exit interviews, and we had 15 resignations or terminations for the month of December. Onboarding, we had 20 new hires. We did 44 evaluations, and then we worked with 44 volunteers at pause. Policy changes, myself, Eric Hennessy, Chief of Staff, and Nick Christensen, the County Attorney, have been working on handbook revisions, and I believe we have polished that up, and we looked at 47 policies in December to review and amend as necessary. We have 14 different promotional activities. This is where organizations want to provide a benefit to our employees, whether it be Dollywood or a local apartment or a bank has a special option for our employees. And so we had 14 of those during the month of December. For recruitment, we received 380 applications. We had 174 declination letters, conducted 67 interviews, had 18 job postings, and we did 10 reference checks. Reports and surveys, the largest categories here are going to be the open records requests. We had 271 open records requests. We had 295 Title VI, and those are requests for interpreters in court are in probation, recovery court, wherever they need a different language other than English. And so we had 95 of those cases. Our special projects, we had several special projects, but the biggest project that we are moving our hard copies to all electronic, and we transferred 4,013 hard copy files or documents from paper to electronic to make those available to the department heads electronically. Evaluation and testing, we did 51 post-accidents, 10 pre-employment, 36 background checks. Those were the big ones. For our Title VI, which again is the languages, we provided 95 different interpreters. 83 of those were Spanish, and the others were just various Arabic, Korean, Japanese, several different languages that we provided. Training, we trained 641 employees on business ethics, 649 employees on the drug-free workplace. We did 20 leadership sessions. We did another 20 of sexual harassment training and another 20 of Title VI. That concludes the HR snapshot for this month. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Do I have a motion to approve report? Commissioner Beverly, second. Commissioner Rather. All those in favor say aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Appreciate it. Good job. All right, next we're going to go to litigation. Commissioners, on your iPad is a list of all the litigation that the county is presently in right now. Is there any questions? All right, Nick, I do have one. I'd like to see if you give us a real quick on Reeves versus Town of Smyrna, Rutherford County.
Yes, sir. So that case has proceeded along for a number of years. There's one remaining plaintiff left as a result of that case, and that matter is set for trial at the beginning of February.
Yep. But most of the stuff was dismissed, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Are any other questions? All right, let's move on. Next is our lobbyist report called Will Deny Me Up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the steering committee. I want to kind of give you an outline of what I want to talk about tonight, which is recurring question that keeps coming up as we've worked on this issue over and over and over again. And I put together a PowerPoint to help really kind of dive deep into this issue. I've done the research. We've looked at this pretty thoroughly, and I want to do that. I think this is helpful, especially following the meeting that we had at the Chamber. I see Chamber Director Latour here, and I want to thank him for making the Chamber available on December 18th. I want to thank the delegation for organizing and putting that together. Thank the Commission and all the members who presented. Thank the Mayor for his efforts in getting the information available to everybody. I thought it was a lot of information. And I think what's important is that these are being recorded so that in the future people want to know what happened. They'll be able to go back and look at this history. So today you'll see, as I start, the question that I keep asking and no one can give me an answer to. And I'd love to know if anybody knows, why doesn't Rutherford County have the same authority as Laverne, Murfreesboro, and Smyrna, and Williamson and Wilson counties to levy adequate facilities taxes or impact fees? Why? It's a simple question. To find the answer, you've got to go back to 2004, right here. 20 years ago, right here. When I say 2004, what am I talking about? I'm talking about, and I think Chairman Phillips will probably remember this, in 2004, this body requested a change to the Private Act for Rutherford County. House Bill 3582, 20 years ago. Now, what's interesting about House Bill 3582 is it died. Tasser makes a report about it. The Tasser report in 2004, in August of 2004, and I'm going to read it to you. The summary, Tasser says, there were 2 bills that failed. One of the bills, there were 14 introduced, 12 passed, 2 failed. One was from Fayette County, modifying their private act. The year before, in 2003, the General Assembly passed it, and the Commission failed to adopt it. As everyone in this room knows, you have to request it, and then you have to adopt it again. And Fayette County didn't do that. So they came back to the legislature in 2004, passed the same exact bill again. The other bill was from right here in Rutherford County. And in Tasser, they say the failure of these 2 local bills was unusual. Tasser staff was able to check bills going back to 1987, but was unable to find any other local bills that failed to pass because of a lack of a constitutional majority. Since 1987, every local bill passed except for, in 2004, Rutherford County and the previous bill, which had been passed the year before but not adopted locally, from Fayette County. So what do they say? They say it's interesting because other impact fees and adequate facility taxes, development taxes, were passed by the legislature in the past. 2 bills authorizing impact fees and adequate facility taxes were passed that year. What they say is an important issue that this raises is whether there is a need for a general statute enabling local governments to adopt development taxes and change them as needed. I'm going to read that again. An important issue that this raises is whether there's a need for a general statute enabling local governments to adopt development taxes and change them as needed. The Private Act was about adequate facilities tax. So, and change them as needed. Enable local governments to adopt. So a general statute means instead of doing a local bill, pass a general law to allow local governments to enact and change them as necessary. So what happens? 2005. What happens in 2005? 14 more bills are introduced. One of them is from Rutherford County. Actually, there's several from Rutherford County. House Bill 975 is the one that I picked out. There's a variety of them. And an interesting thing occurs. And Mr. Chairman, what I've done is I've with the mayor's help and his staff and a really good team of people, we put this together. We went and got the audio from 2005. Now, what are you going to hear? You're going to hear something that's really kind of interesting. You're going to hear the chairman of Tasser is going to sweep up actually a total of 26 bills in one motion. In all of these bills in 2005, there's 14 dealing with development taxes and impact fees. 14 of those bills, they're going to all go to Tasser for recommendations. So in one motion, every single bill in 2005 is going to get swept up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. House Bill 2705, what this does, this is we're amending a private act that's existing on the books since 1987. It's a privilege tax, and the only thing we're doing is the clarification of language.
Excuse me, Chairman Sargent. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm having trouble hearing the sponsor, so I'm sure other members are too. I know this is a busy agenda that we have. Please take your conversation outside or keep it at a minimum. Excuse my interruption. You may continue.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If you looked at Section 7 of the bill you have in front of you, that's the only language we're changing. And it's just showing the new development not to exceed $1 per gross square foot, a new residential development, and $1 per gross square foot, a new non-residential. The original bill, this is, like I said, this is on the books now. The original bill Section 7 is worded, for the privilege tax described, Williams County may impose a tax on new development not to exceed $1 per gross square foot of new residential and new non-residential. That's the only wording we're changing in the whole bill.
At this
Here it
point,
goes.
I need to go to the chairman of the State and Local Government Committee. Chairman Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Representative Sargent, what I'm going to do is recognize Representative Rinks, Chairman of TASA, for a motion on the fee bills, and we're looking at about 15 bills that we possibly want to look at. Chairman Rinks.
And Chairman Rinks, would you identify every
I will.
every bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I've talked to several of the members that are sponsoring these bills, and I know they all need, and all the local governments need these type bills, and all the members are in support of these type bills. But with that being said, I've also talked to some local government officials, and what I've talked to them about was a broader base or broader taxing authority, and allowing them to have broader taxing authority at the local level. I know a lot of the members are not real comfortable with a lot of times having to bring these bills that deal with private acts on different issues, whether it be will tax, transfer tax, whatever that may be. So I have been talking to the sponsor of these bills last night on the floor. It was our thought that we would move all these bills that dealt with the private acts and the local tax and authority bills to TASER and let them study and come back with a report in January to look at the different scenarios and maybe other states and what they do to give their local governments a broader taxing authority. Being a past mayor, I understand the need for that. There are some communities that maybe have not maxed out in the taxing authority they have, and maybe are even trying to expand in some other taxing authorities. We need to look at that. There may be some mechanisms in place we can put to trigger where there's high growth in areas to allow those communities to trigger into some of these other taxing authorities. But with that, I think we ought to let TASER look at that over the summer and the fall and come back with a report and recommendation 15th of January. I'll put in my motion.
Of course, the motion passes. Like the chairman said, I talked to everybody on the floor last night. I know they want all these bills to pass. We're just going to sweep them all up, send them to TASER, and they did. So what does TASER do? TASER studies the bills, exactly like the chairman said. 2005, they swept up every bill. Remember, Rutherford County had their bill stopped in 2004, comes back in 2005, files it again along with other bills, and all of them get swept and sent to TASER, okay? So what does TASER do? They study the bills. This is the report. In 2006, this is the report. It's a very lengthy report. All the bills, each bill is broken down in here. They go through each one of them. Summary, recommendation. But if you want to know what they thought, they made it real simple. On the very first page, page 1, in the summary, adequate facility taxes, development taxes, impact fee bills. The first thing, in order to provide more flexibility to local governments and allow them to shape and better plan for growth, TASER recommends general enabling adequate facilities tax legislation and general enabling impact fee legislation. Page 1. Page 1. So what happens? 2006. Here we go. What you're going to hear, for those of you who are not familiar with the Senate process, or how a bill becomes law, a bill has to pass both in the Senate and the House, and it has to be exactly the same to become law. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the Senate. This is where the discussion begins, and you're going to see how much discussion there really is. So in Senate Finance, there's a subcommittee, and in the subcommittee of Senate Finance, the Tax Study Committee, they make recommendations, either a positive recommendation or a negative recommendation. So Senate Bill 3839 will become the County Powers Relief Act. this is what is said.
Last calendar, Senator from 3838, last calendar, Senator Person 3839, last calendar, Senator Ramsey 3709, General Sub, Senator.
There's some confusion there what they're trying to do, but they send it to General Sub. How do you know that? Because there's a list of bills. They're going through each of the bills. What does that mean? What does General Sub mean for those who are not familiar? General Sub typically means the Senate is no longer going to review this issue. This issue has basically now been put to bed for the year. So what happens? It's like a tradition in the Senate. It's called motion, no motion. So now we're into the budget. The budget has been passed or is about to be passed, and one of the traditions of the Senate is to go through a meeting where they list all the bills that have to have funding in the budget in order to become law. And they'll go through each one of those bills. And the chair will ask for a motion and a second, and then they'll take a vote. If there's no motion, no second, the bill will die right then. So this is something that's still done to this day. This was obviously back in 2006.
3083, is there a motion? Is there a motion? General Sub. 2465, is there a motion? Is there a motion? General Sub. 3839, is there a motion? Is there a motion? General Sub. Whoa. No motion there. Good bill, don't hear a motion though, son. Well, staff, rescue me here.
197,
Is staff nodding?
real estate transfer tax. That's a 7.
Did you hear it?
Yeah. Just funded? All right.
Senator Burke,
That Burchett moves.
you seconded it.
All right, call roll, please.
Senator Burchett. Senator Crutchfield. Senator Haynes. Senator Jackson. Senator Kyle. Senator Carita. Senator McNally.
Aye.
Senator Miller. Senator Ramsey. Senator Williams. Senator Henry.
Goes out.
So now the bill goes.
754,
Now the bill goes out. So it was in General Sub, it comes out, that's fine. It can happen all the time. But you didn't hear in the description of why the bill, and I'm going to play it again. What was Senate Bill 3839? Again, this is all the discussion there is on this bill.
Rescue me here.
197,
Is staff nodding?
real estate transfer tax. That's a 7.
Real estate transfer tax. Real estate transfer tax. So that's the first discussion of what the purpose of the bill is. Now, it's going to the floor. So this is what happens when a bill is not ready to be heard, and there's any number of reasons why a bill would need to be rolled or delayed because it's not ready to be heard. So in this case, what you're going to hear is the bill is at the end of session, and this is the first time on the floor for 3839, which becomes the County Powers Relief Act.
Senate Bill 3839 by Senator Ramsey on third and final consideration.
Senator Ramsey, to the Hill.
To the Hill it means we're not ready to vote on it, and the Hill is not the hill, it's the heel of the calendar, the end of the calendar. So you roll it to the end of the calendar. Pretty normal, happens all the time. Here we go.
Speaker, the Senate's back on Senate Bill 3839 by Senator Ramsey, item 2 on the regular calendar.
Senator Ramsey. To the Hill.
All right, second time, to the heel, roll it again.
Mr. Speaker, the Senate is on Senate Bill 3839, number 2 on the regular calendar. By Senator Ramsey.
Senator Ramsey. Hill. To the Hill.
3 times. Anybody guess what's about to happen?
That young man.
Senate Bill 3839, Senator Ramsey.
Privilege tax. Privilege tax, right here it is. After all that.
This is the
To the Hill.
That it?
To the Hill. Senator Ramsey.
According to the House sponsor, they're considering that now or very soon. I'm going to wait till it comes over to substitute
To
control.
the Hill. That's the clerk. The Hill's here. Senator Ramsey.
So in the Senate, they said, okay, we're going to wait, we're going to get whatever comes over from the House. So what's going on in the House? 3469 is the companion, same bill. This is in the committee, the state and local committee. Remember, all those bills were sent to TASER for study. All those bills were sent to TASER for study. You remember what was on page 1. Here we go.
Apparently, there's been a lot of questions on the part of yourselves and your other colleagues about what our position is on this. And the fact that we have not actively lobbied against this bill, what I want to confer to you is the fact that we have not lobbied against it does not necessarily mean that we support the bill. Our position is, as it has always been, we oppose narrow-based taxes against one particular industry or one small group of people, in this case, future home buyers who cannot be here to respond to this bill themselves. Sometime after the TASER meetings, there was a bill crafted, the one you have in front of you, and at that time, we were handed that bill a week after our legislative visits here. At that point, we found that there had been an alliance formed between the Tennessee Association of Realtors and the county associations to back this bill. Now, as everyone here knows, there are numerous private acts out there that have been filed this year and last, and many of those are more damaging and narrow-based than this bill. And that's when we came to the conclusion that we had to take a stand somewhere, and that was that we would not oppose this bill, but nor would we support it.
So what he says, this comes out after TASER, rumors of an alliance here.
I wanted to clarify on page 7 of the amendment which makes the bill, right before section 2, I'd like to clarify one part, and you may not be able to do that now, but before this bill moves on beyond the Finance Committee, that municipalities would not be prohibited from bringing an impact fee, and I want to be clear that they can still create that impact fee in the future, even if they don't currently have or levy that fee. It's my understanding that the intent of this legislation was that they would be able to create, levy, and gain an impact fee in the future. So if you would include that part. And the last part, I would, again, to my colleague from Shelby County who talked about the last bill, the concerns about where we, in our, quote, direction, when we benefited some counties and not others, I'm not sure how we can, the rationale for the future will be that we're going to have citizens across the state not have equal benefits where 2 counties are getting benefits of a tax that the other counties aren't getting. When will the other counties be lined up, just like this previous bill lined up saying, me too, why should they get a benefit we don't? And I would strongly consider that we do a limited time frame on that this thing phases out, that the bill just be there for X number of years and then phase out so that everybody will be back on equal footing, and then we won't have future counties coming to us going, why can't I have the same benefit as these 2 counties that are in the bill? So if you look at those.
We will.
So there's 2 questions that are asked there. One, will you make sure the cities aren't harmed? Will you make sure the cities still have their authority to levy and implement, raise, and adjust their impact fees and adequate facilities taxes? And 2, will you end this bill so you don't have counties coming back saying this isn't fair? We will.
Representative Todd.
Thank you. Representative Rinks, under this bill here, then this would put a moratorium on bringing back impact fees and adequate facility taxes and other type of taxes, correct?
Correct.
That's what it does. It closes the door on local governments that could previously levy adequate facilities taxes or impact fees. That's what it does. It closes the door. So they swept up all the bills in 2015, go to 2005, come back 2006. And the request that's made is make sure that we're not harming the cities so the cities can still do that. And if you're going to do this to the counties, you ought to sunset it because it's going to be a problem in the future. Now we get to the floor. This is now, you can go watch all this online. This is right after the budget passes in the House. So this is the very next bill.
Okay, I understand that, Chairman Rinks, but that's not how the memo was explained. And therefore, that gives me great concern based on what you explained it and what the chairman explained it. With regards to that, I know what your bill does, but that's not what he said, just for the record, with regards to that. And that does give me a lot of heartburn. With regards to that, is the transfer tax going back to any of the counties in the state?
Real estate transfer tax. Remember, you heard that in the Senate. You heard that in the Senate when they were, oh, this bill's in the budget, it's good to go, real estate transfer tax. Now we're on the floor of the House. That's the first time you're going to hear real estate transfer tax.
And let me say this. Right now, as we stand, we have these taxes in some counties. But this tax could be implemented in 95 counties as we speak. This tax can be implemented right now by your county commission. It could be implemented at $2. It could be implemented at $4 as we speak. This bill actually slows that down. This bill actually gets this back down to about 25 counties that can actually meet this criteria. This also puts in place caps. It puts in a $1 cap, is the most it can be. It puts in growth caps, the most they can raise it. So it is not putting in a tax, it's actually, they're able to do this now. And we've had these fights over these adequate facility taxes, and I voted against almost every one of them. But they came from your counties, they didn't come from mine. Because mine has not tried to implement one, but mine can. But another thing it does for the home builder, and I know home builders have been opposed to it, but right now, where you have a county such as Williamson County, that home builder is paying it when he pulls a building permit. Under this bill, he would not pay it till a year after he pulls a building permit. So he is not having to pay that tax on the front end. But don't be mistaken. There's 95 counties can do it now. Williamson County has already done it now. I probably didn't vote for the one in Williamson County when they did it. But I'm telling you, what this does is lower it down to the 25 growth counties that actually are having to build schools every year. My county is not faced with that. My county will not meet this criteria. The Big Four will probably not meet this criteria. But this is just for those counties that when we looked in Tasser, because this bill come from Tasser, we looked at these were the growth counties. They're experiencing and having to have revenue to meet that growth to build these schools. That's what this bill is about, to allow them to do that in an orderly fashion without having to come back down here every year and see us and try to have a personality contest of which one we pass and which one we don't pass. And that's what we've been dealing with, and this is an effort to try to keep that from happening. And that's all that is.
There you go. That's it. This shuts it down. We were passing them all. We stopped with Rutherford County. In 2005, we swept them all up, sent them to Tasser. This comes from Tasser. That's it.
Representative Montgomery.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to commend the sponsor of this bill. I know I am one of those counties that have the growth. I know we have $72 to $78 million worth of schools to build in the next year, and we don't know where we're going to come up with the money. We have to have some options, whether it be property tax, whether it be this. But one question I thought I'd heard that someone may be going to amend this bill and talk about a real estate transfer. Is anything about real estate transfer in this bill?
There is nothing about the real estate transfer tax in this bill.
Okay, thank you.
That's the second time. So this is just chronological on the floor, and this will be the third time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said before, this bill came about in order to try to keep us from coming along and having to have these fights over and over again up here on private acts, and allows the counties to do this. It limits it to about 25 to 28 counties, depending on the census, in order to help those counties that need those help to keep from having to raise those property taxes in order to feed the growth that they're having for these schools. This is strictly going to school fund for capital project outlays in schools. And with that, I renew my motion.
Gentleman renews his motion, properly seconded. Representative Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sponsor yield.
I yield.
The representative from Sevier County has already asked this question, but just to hear it again, there's nothing in the bill now as amended that deals with real estate transfer tax.
There's nothing in the bill.
Again, the three questions on the floor about this: what about the real estate transfer tax? What about real estate transfer tax? What about real estate transfer tax?
Senate Bill 3839 by Senator Ramsey on third and final consideration. The House bill is on the desk.
Ramsey.
Move to substitute and conform.
Made it entered without objection.
To cut to the chase, there's only one question asked.
Amendment number.
Amendment
guess
number
what the
one,
question's
Senate
gonna be?
Finance Committee amendment is in the House bill.
Senator Henry, withdraw.
Amendment number 2, filed timely by Senator Finney.
Senator Finney,
Withdraw.
withdraw.
Amendment number 3 by Senator Kyle is in the House bill.
Withdrawn.
Speaker, there are no further amendments.
Senator Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What this is called the County Powers Relief Act legislation. It deals with adequate facilities taxes and does put some criteria on counties before they enact this tax and gives that authority to the counties. I know for years we've had private act after private act to be brought up here to us, and this will eliminate that. It will assist the counties with education funding. It will assist the counties with the problems they have through rapid growth. To give you a real quick synopsis on this, if you're a county that's grown 20% in the last 10 years or 9% in the last 4 years, you can opt into this, but it puts criteria on what you can do. Currently, you can adopt a adequate facilities tax with any amount per square foot. This limits it to $1 per square foot. Currently, you could actually even up it every year if you wanted it to. This actually, the compromise we came up with county government was to do it only every 4 years and at 10% each time. So it also limits that. Now, it has to pass a county commission not once but twice by a 2/3 vote before it's adopted, but it doesn't come to the legislature after that. So it sets that criteria on who can get in. There currently all 95 counties would be eligible. It does limit that down, and this has to be used by the bill, has to be used for growth-related expenditures for education, such as capital projects, et cetera. So I think it's a good bill, a good compromise that we've come up with on this. I move passage of House Bill 3469 on third and final.
So moved and seconded. Senator Henry.
Mr. Speaker, if the gentleman would answer one question. Senator Ramsey, this bill does not divert any part of the transfer tax. Is that a correct statement?
I'm going to speed this up. That's right. Doesn't do that. So what happens? There's another TASA report following this. And what does it say? On page 5 on the front, TASA recommended general enabling adequate facilities tax and impact fee legislation. This was the opposite. What does it say? On page 11, there's 2 questions to consider. Does growth pay for itself? If not, what do local governments have to help pay for it? On page 13, there are numerous reasons why residential growth does not pay for itself. And it's not surprising the majority of states have now authorized impact fees. So what happens next? And I know I'm done, Mr. Chairman, but 2007, guess what? A bill's filed for real estate transfer tax, the same issue that they kept asking over and over and over again. What happens? It gets sent to TASA, and here's the TASA report. What do you think TASA says? They reiterate how they recommended including a general statutory authorization for local governments. So, Mr. Chairman, it's in report after report after report after report from TASA that they recommended the legislation that you've asked for. And again, the final piece, which I thought was really interesting, is they include the minutes of 2005. And Dr. Green, in those minutes, talks about it started in 1981 with Nissan in Smyrna. The whole thing, right here in Rutherford County. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your indulgence. I just wanted to, this history lesson I think is important. We're in 2024. It's been 20 years. It all started right here. It all started right here. The question is still the same. Why doesn't Rutherford County have the same authority as Laverne, Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Williamson, and Wilson County? So the mayor has put together, and I've got it here in front of me, it's a folder. Lisa, if you would, pass these out for each of the members of the commission and the delegation. There's a letter here that I want to bring to your attention from the director of schools.
Call a recess, 5 minutes.
And clear. It's got a letter of support from the director of schools in support of this county commission. There is the same information we presented at the chamber that shows the breakdown of Wilson County, Williamson County, Rutherford County. There's a letter of support from trustee Ted Beatty. There's a letter of support from Greg Books, road superintendent. A letter of support from the sheriff, and a letter of support, Mr. Chairman, from the county mayor and each of the city mayors of Smyrna, Murfreesboro, Laverne, and Eagleville. And within this packet is as transparent as we could possibly be. No caption bill, no bill that impacts anybody else, just the legislation that shares the same authority that the cities within the county have with the county. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other business? Any other business? All right, the steering committee is adjourned. We're going to take a 5-minute recess to get our delegates up here, and then we'll start the question. All right, welcome everybody, and welcome our legislators. We appreciate the come. Appreciate they come. We have a lot of questions to come up. I know that the long presentation y'all had heard was trying to let y'all understand what the County Powers Act is and some of the things that we're working with. I apologize for the late time. Legislators, I apologize. And we'll try to get this thing going as fast as possible. I want to introduce our representatives, Mike Sparks, Charlie Baum, Tim Rudd, Senator Don White, Representative Terry, Senator Shane Reeves, and Representative Robert Stevens. Thank y'all for coming. We had some questions I've passed on to y'all, and we want to try to get through as many as we can. These questions have came from the commission, so all of us are involved in what's being asked tonight. And also keep in mind that we are facing some big obstacles with the schools and capital projects, which y'all are very aware of. I'm going to start off by calling on Commissioner Cush and ask the first question.
Well, thank you, I think, Chairman Harris. Well, we all saw the video, right? Kind of made me angry just a little bit. You have, I think, probably seen the resolution, right? You've read the resolution that came, okay. So we are in a tough time. I've been on the Planning Commission for Rutherford County for 15 or 16 years now, and it is tough to see the amount of growth, the amount of schools we have to build, the infrastructure that is impacted, not only roads, but utilities, everything that is impacted by the growth. So, you know, the question that the mayor has brought before everyone, and, you know, our constituents are starting, there's a lot of static in the air, none that I have not seen, and like I have never seen in my 12 years as commissioner. But, you know, the hard question is, should growth pay for itself? Now, that's a broad question, because there is a lot of expense to growth. And we're not asking or suggesting that the developers pay for all that. And we're not suggesting that a development tax or an impact fee is the sole solution. But my question to you is simply, should growth pay for itself? And if you have a how and a why, I would appreciate that part of the answer as well. So I will open that up to anybody or all who would like to volunteer. Thank you all. And thanks for being here, and Happy New Year to each and every one of you.
Wants to take that? Representative Sparks?
Thank you for that question. I'm Mike Sparks, Rutherford County. I'm Smyrna, 49th District. You know, I sat right here in this chair where Anthony Johnson's District 11. And I've kind of felt y'all's pain by sitting there. We were talking about this conversation 15, 16, 18 years ago when I was here. So it's the same old problem, looking for a solution. Should growth pay for itself? I think it should. We just had a grandbaby. Her name's Grace. Really proud of her. Just turned 1. I don't know how much she should pay. I don't know what kind of tax you put on that child that my son had. I know that we're in a crisis in this community. I'll call it a crisis. Crisis of communication, crisis of leadership. Growth, I guess, is a crisis. A lot of folks want to live here in Rutherford County. A lot of folks want to move to Tennessee. You know, I kind of wish we'd put up a billboard, Chairman, and just say to everybody from California and Detroit and New York, we're closed. We're full. But I got a grandbaby that just came into the world. She's going to want to buy a home in 18, 20 years. My son's looking for a place. It's a crisis because it pains me. I mean, it really hurts me when I hold that grandbaby and look in her eyes and think, okay, what future do you have? Is your schools going to be safe? Are there a rash of stolen guns out there? You're going to be shot up? That stuff's happening in this community. Is there a mental health problem? Yeah, we got a severe mental health problem. We got a housing crisis. We got a housing crisis. Should growth pay for itself? I think it should, but we've got a cost overrun, and that's schools. The cost of education has continued to increase. This country's Chairman, it was 33 trillion. I think it's now toppled 34 trillion. It's unsustainable. I said this last year. It's unsustainable. And, you know, I know y'all have a lobbyist. Here's a book of lobbyists right here. I don't know if I've ever held this up. It's 58 pages, 5 people per page right here. Lobbyists right there. You know how many of those people have really advocated for that grandbaby of mine? I doubt if any of them have. That's what's so sad, Will. You know, I had a bill, Will knows about that bill. I had a bill that would have saved $20 million to the counties, but I had lobbyists fighting me, and they're paid for by taxpayers. All this stuff needs to be on the table. I'll meet every week. If you want to meet every Friday, as long as we can make it from session, I'll be here. I think we need more collaboration. I think Chairman Cush just mentioned this impact fee, impact tax, whatever you want to call it, it's not going to alleviate the problem. We got a costs that are out of control. It just frightens me. How many of y'all are worried? And am I the only one worried? I'm the only one worried? No one else going to raise their hand? I'm worried about the future of this nation. There's some people that's worried up there, worried how that little grandbaby is going to afford a home. We should all be concerned. We need more dialogue and discussion. These issues aren't Democrat, Republican. It just worries me. And I've seen a lot of, like that bill that would have saved $20 million. I got another bill that we think will save $96 million. But you know what? I don't have no lobbyists helping me. No lobbyists are helping me. $96 million. If some reporter wants to challenge that assertion, just see me after the meeting, $96 million. But I'll have high-power lobbyists working against me to find that $96 million. It's called reference-based pricing, price transparency in health care. Does growth pay for itself? Doesn't it pay for itself? I think it does, but we got to get these costs under control. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to answer this question? Question is, does growth pay for itself? How? Why?
Craig. Yeah, I can make some comments, and thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, of course, growth should pay for itself, but the questions, you know, we have stuff everywhere from illegal immigration to open borders. From that, you have refugees. We have, I call them California refugees. We have, I think last year, over 22,000 people from California came to Tennessee, and I know that my constituents don't want to pay for that and for those issues. And so, but the questions that we need y'all's input for, have you come up to the Capitol and sit down with folks up there, talk with the lobbyist or whatever, is what does it actually mean to pay for itself? You know, what are the costs? What's a fair and just manner to go about getting that taken care of, and you know, working out some solution along those lines. You know, we have in this country a lot of other negative forces that we're dealing with, a lot of it basically due to the Biden administration, with the economy, with you know, the devaluing of the dollar, inflation. You have increased interest rates. All those things are making it more difficult, obviously, to pay for itself. How do we deal with those forces as well? And I'm, you know, open to suggestions on that. And then the last question really is, and Will can tell you this, is, you know, whatever solutions are out there, you know, we could all support something, but getting something through the General Assembly is a different animal, and that's, you know, Will can tell you how difficult that is. So should growth pay for itself? Yeah, how does it? Those are great questions. Love to have input on that. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Comment on it.
Senator Reeves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission. You know, I think growth is a good thing. It really is, whether it's a growth in your business or growth in your church or growth at MTSU or growth in this county. I represent other counties that would love to have the growth we have here, but unfortunately with the growth we have here, it strains resources and pushes us. So I'd like to think, does growth pay for itself? I think planned growth, having some kind of intentional planned growth, should pay for itself moving forward. And I think that's striking the right balance of increasing revenue, what we can bring to the table, controlling expenses, and just ensuring that moving forward we are being sensitive to what our building community needs as well. I think as we move forward as a group and trying to all collectively work together on this, I mean, we may look up here in a few years and all the new homes are being built in Bedford and Coffee and Moore and Marshall counties and nothing in Rutherford, which no matter what we do here from trying to raise money for new homes, if there's no homes being built here, it won't make any difference. So we've just got to strike the right balance of all of this as we grow thoughtfully together.
Anybody else? Good. Well, since you kind of touched on that a little bit, Senator Reeves, I'm going to kind of throw another out there for every one of you. Is what ideas do you have to raise revenues for this county? Representative Baum?
I can tell you a little bit about some of the legislation that's being drafted and being proposed in Nashville right now. There are two bills. I'm not saying they have any chance of passing. I'm not saying what their chances are of passing. One would change the County Powers Relief Act so that instead of charging $1 per square foot, you would be, upon passage of this bill, be able to charge $1.50 per square foot. And then instead of the 10% increase occurring once every 4 years, it would occur once every 3 years. So it's a bill that's designed to increase revenue from the County Powers Relief Act. A second bill that's being drafted would generate income for counties from a real estate transfer tax. I think I heard some of that on this on the historical presentation as we were walking in. But there's a lot of different opinions in Nashville, and one thing I should point out is where those two bills would provide additional revenue, there are other representatives and senators that are working right now to pass legislation at the state level that would have the state cap the amount of a property tax increase that a county commission could pass. So that would be going in the opposite direction. That would reduce your flexibility and to raise money, your ability to raise money. So I just tell you about that bill, that proposed legislation, so that you'll know that there's really a lot of different opinions in Nashville, and growing counties have one set of concerns, and I think the representatives and senators from those counties are looking for ways to help. There are other legislators that are concerned about property tax increases and want to limit future property tax increases statewide. Now, you have mentioned asking for the ability to have impact fees, and I presume that means without any state limit on where the impact fee could be set. I think one thing that many of your representatives and senators are interested in finding out tonight is what would be an adequate solution. Is the only solution you'd be willing to accept one that would allow you to charge an impact fee with no limit, or would you be willing to agree to something like a change to the County Powers Relief Act, like the first bill that I just described, where this dollar per square foot goes up to $1.50 a square foot, where the 10% escalator starts not after 4 years but after 3 years? Would a real estate transfer tax be satisfactory? That's one thing we need to know, because if us supporting bills like that are not enough, then we need to know that, so that we're not up there in Nashville trying to negotiate some of these things, only to find out that the only thing that's satisfactory for Rutherford County is an impact fee without a state limit.
Thank you, and appreciate the question. And I wanted to, actually I was going to touch on a lot of the things that Charlie had spoken about, those two bills in particular, and then the bill about capping the property tax limit. And I think we're one of only 4 states that do not have a cap on property tax. And there's a couple of different ideas I know that are being floating around about that. And I spoke with some of the people that are looking at that yesterday, and to me, and the concern that I expressed was obviously if Rutherford County doesn't have a diversified portfolio and then you cap that issue, that's going to be a problem. That being said, there appears to be at least some appetite to speak, and I tried to get in touch with Will today, at least my office did, to try to have a couple of commissioners, maybe Jonathan, maybe Wayne, I don't know where, I saw Wayne earlier today, there he is, meet with these folks, because it seems like they are open to, if there's going to be a cap, how can other counties diversify their portfolio? And that's something that needs to be discussed. And so what's going to become of that, I don't know, but that's something that we can have those discussions and see what other opportunities there might be for the county.
Senator Dwight.
Thank you, Chairman. As you saw in that video, and of course that was back in '06, and none of us was up there in '06. None of us had got elected. There's 132 people that vote on a bill. There's 99 in the House. There's 33 in the Senate. And we have got to have some kind of direction on, is there going to be a cap on it? Is there not going to be? What kind of direction that we have not received from the commission? Is the only thing you're going to be willing to do is leave it unlimited? Is that what you want? That's going to be hard to pass. I'm going to be honest with you, because that's going to affect 95 counties, and 132 people are going to vote on that. And again, we're only 7 of 132. I think we've tried to work. We've sent out a letter, what was that, Brian, in March or April this year, saying we wanted to work with you. We've tried to have meetings, but right now there's no consistency on what y'all are willing to live without, and what could be compromised, and what you could live or live without. And I think we need direction from that.
One more thought.
Senator Reeves?
Yeah, appreciate that. So many of you participated in our meeting on December 18th, and I think we heard loud and clear we have a funding issue, and the county really feels like your hand's strapped. And so, I think, I can't speak for the whole delegation, but we want to help. There's no question about it. We want to be part of the solution as we talk through all this here tonight. And I just think everything needs to be on the table. That's just kind of where I am right now. I think we need to look at, there were multiple ideas that came up that night, everything from adequate facilities to creating county parity, which is what Will was talking about, the real estate transfer taxes, getting lottery money, sports betting money, portion of sales tax. I think everything needs to be on the table. But I tell you what I wish we could think about is, We're going to work real hard to try to get something done, and I would hate to think we're going to have to turn around in 24 months to do this again. It would just be great if we could think about something that was a little bit more long-term planned, look at recurring dollars, look at non-recurring dollars, look at the whole picture moving forward, and try to get aligned so that we're not doing this every year.
Thank you. Let me touch on something real quick that all y'all just brought up. This commission passed a resolution by the county commission that gives, we're asking for the same authority as the municipalities, which you've seen that in the video that was being brought up. Can you give us, each one, if you don't mind, tell us, how do you feel about that resolution that the county commission is asking y'all to look at? And it is the one where we're asking for the same authority as the municipalities. Who wants to hit that? Right here.
As the resolution was written, which is fairly similar to the one, I believe, last year, as it's written, I can't support it. As far as giving the powers to the county, under the County Powers Relief Act, no county's been granted an authority since then, other than the 3 counties that were grandfathered in from the 80s and 90s. I think any legislation that's run granting counties powers need to be negotiated separately from any revenue increase. They need to be in 2 separate bills. As long as they're tied together, I think it's going to severely hurt the chances of any legislation passed. They're 2 separate subjects. Even though they're tied to one another, they're different. And I would suggest you, if there are legislation running on that, I haven't seen it yet, but it needs to be run separately. You know, cities and counties are a whole different thing, and cities have a lot more responsibility, a lot more streets to patrol. They have streets and gutters and water treatment plants and a greater crime problem because they have more population confined in a small area. Their emergency services are more because it's called out more in city streets. So they're just 2 totally different. And I guess I'm just assuming that the reason why the legislature granted cities and metro governments more power than counties is because they can't, a city with all of its issues and problems, which is far more severe than most of the county issues, as far as day-to-day administration, does not have 8 months when we're out of session to wait for us to grant additional powers. And that's always a problem, but it's great to have a part-time legislature, but we are gone 7 to 8 months a year, and we can't get any legislation passed or address a lot of problems during then except through the executive branch. So as far as that part of it, as of right now, the way it's written, I personally could not support that part of it. As far as the part of the resolution passing either an impact fee or some other type of development tax, or granting you the authority to adjust that, or we adjust it. I've already got, Charlie mentioned some. I've been negotiating with another legislator that's carrying, from Murray County, that's carrying the possibility of upping the adequate facilities tax and adjusting it so that it can increase more in a short period of time to address inflation. And I've been working with him on that to see if we can reach a common agreement, and he's been very open to that, and we're trying to negotiate something with all the parties. I've also carrying legislation that sets aside, I've been working with the Speaker and other leaders throughout the entire year on setting aside for the 11 fastest growing counties and actual population growth, not percentages, but population growth, is returning 2.83% of those counties of the state shared revenue from sales taxes to build schools and school maintenance. And depending on the state of the economy, that could be anywhere from 10 to 15 million additional revenue a year. If we can do that, and it would be sunset for like 4 years, and then it would have to be reviewed and renewed. So it wouldn't be permanent, but it would at least be a temporary fix, and it could be adjusted after that. Of course, a lot of that's coming from state revenue, and we're due to a slow in the economy and a recent lawsuit with the F&E tax. We're going to be short of the massive shortfalls are over this year, but there's still revenue that we're trying to look at to help the fast-growing counties. I've also met with the governor And we also are looking at possibility of increasing the TISA fund for fast-growing counties, which was, they only had $35 million in it last time, but increasing that to help with school construction. So they're working on that right now. There's other avenues that we're trying, and I've got a lot of things working, and we're negotiating right now. I guess that's update you on that, what's going on. There's other pieces of legislation that legislators are carrying that I'm finding out about and meeting with to see if something can be done. Thank you.
Yes. Senator Dwight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand y'all want unlimited, and again, that may or may not pass. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you. Again, we're only 7 of 132 legislators up there. But I do think that we need a Plan B, a Plan C, and a Plan D in case the unlimited, and Will's back there shaking his head. He knows how the process works. But I think that we need to discuss a Plan B, C, and D as well in case the unlimited does not go through. And I think we need direction on what the Plan B, C, and D will look like and what you would want Plan B, C, and D to be.
Thank you. And I want to point out something to you guys, and I want to make this pretty clear from a standpoint. I've had this conversation cordially, I think, with Jonathan before and maybe some of you others. But a resolution is not a substitute for communication, and that's something that we need from you guys. I will tell you that, with this resolution, it would be much more beneficial, and I know I'm picking on Jonathan, he's in the front row, but I've seen him at the Capitol before. But having one of you commissioners just come up to the Capitol, sit down with us in my office, one of our offices, and have a discussion with our legal services there, have a discussion with one of the members of the committee, talk with the lobbyist, something like that would help us help you better than just a resolution that gets passed that we've not had any communication with you guys on. Will, the first conversation, in-depth conversation, other than maybe in the hallway, the first in-depth conversation I had with Will was last month, and he's y'all's lobbyist. And Will, I hate to pick on you on this, but Will apologized to me for having not had any conversation with us. And I think I was the second person he had talked to. I don't know if he'd talked to anybody else in depth on that. But a resolution, again, is not a substitute for communication. And, we've given you open invitations. That's what we need, is someone to come up there, sit down in our office, work these issues out. That's what we need. And, I think that, as far as, the same authority as a municipality, one of the questions, when I go through an issue, I go through a process. Will knows this. Everyone knows if you come to my committee, you have to fill out a process sheet. The first is what's the problem or what's the premise that you have? What are your goals? What are the options? What's the feasibility of those options? And then what's the consequences of each option or of inaction? And going through that thing, and like one of the questions that I came up was, there's different types of municipalities. What powers do they have? I haven't researched into all that. Have you talked to the other counties? Are they, would they be on board? I ran into, Anthony Holt and asked him, I've got a meeting with him next week. Do all the counties, would this, if it's not feasible, if all the counties don't want that, it's not going to come out of committee. So those are things that have to be worked out. So whether I could support it or whatever, those are conversations we need to have. But again, we need to have that communication. Thank you.
Some of y'all are touching on some of these questions. So when we ask them, some of y'all have already kind of hit them, so I'd like to hit them again. I do have a question, Representative Baum. So you had said that one of the bills that is in the House right now is a $1.50 adequate facilities tax increase from $1 to $1.50. Is that amount locked in at $1.50, or could be a higher number for that?
There could be negotiation. Now, at this point, this is just a bill that's in the process of being drafted. I had some conversations today with some folks that are supportive of this bill. At the moment, I think the plan would be to change the the amount from $1 per square foot to $1.50 per square foot, and to accelerate the 10% increase to, instead of once every 4 years, once every 3 years. But it's negotiable. We've just started our session. We're all gathering information. We're trying to find what would be helpful. We're talking to our commissions. We're talking to our counties. We're trying to figure out what they would be satisfied with versus what would not be helpful. I think one thing we don't want to do is go to Nashville and work real hard to craft a bill that has the chance of passing and then maybe does pass, and then come back to Murfreesboro and discover that the commission doesn't like it and is mad at us for doing this. We need to know what's satisfactory and what's not satisfactory, so we don't go to Nashville and waste time or maybe even political capital advocating for a bill that this commission is unsatisfied with.
So $1.50, which in my opinion is nowhere near it, anything above that's going to have a hard time passing. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think you understand the trade-off. If you raise the dollar to a higher amount, above $1.50, let's say you raise it to $2, then you get more revenue if the bill passes. But the more you raise it, probably the harder it's going to be for the bill to pass. The more these taxes increase, the more you're going to have groups come out opposed to a piece of legislation like that. Representative Sparks mentioned some of the lobbyists. So as you take that amount and you increase it, there's this trade-off. The trade-off is if the bill passes, you get more revenue, but the bill has a lower chance of passing. We've got unique problems in Rutherford County, Maury County, other surrounding counties that are in a similar boat to Rutherford County. There's 95 counties in the state of Tennessee, and many of them are not growing. Many of the rural counties that we have in this state are shrinking. And when we attempt to negotiate these bills with other senators and representatives from some of these shrinking counties, they're not interested in this at all. And so we've got to find a way to craft a bill that will generate a sufficient amount of support to pass. But to answer your question, I think you've got to keep that trade-off in mind. The more ambitious you become in raising revenue, probably the more strength the opposition will be in working against a bill like that.
Representative Rudd.
Thanks, Chairman. I think the bill you're referring to, which I've met with, I believe it's a bill Representative Scott Zepicki of Murray County had proposed. He showed it to me, and he told me about it in a rough draft and recently showed it to me, and it's been negotiations. His original draft was, I believe it was raise the adequate facilities tax. At least this would be an option for counties to adopt. Is raise it to $1.50, and the county commission could raise it to up to another $1.50 in 3 years. But it wouldn't adjust the inflation rate. It would just be that, and then they'd have to come back and renew again. And I think since then that's fluid. That was a proposal, and it's been negotiated. He has another proposal that that he told me about in my office the other day that he's been working all summer long with all the parties on. And he's been meeting with me as well to ask my opinion, and that would be that the part of the sales tax, the value tax on real estate, on residential real estate, that part of that would be set aside for school construction, and it would be determined by the growth rate of counties. However, whatever your county's growth rate is, it would increase, or it would be smaller or larger based on the counties. And that's fluid. I have heard that there's another bill out there that would enable the commission to add on top of the state sales tax on real estate an additional tax up to an amount, but I haven't seen that. I don't even know if that exists. That's just what I was told, so I don't know anything about that bill. And then, of course, there's mine that I've been negotiating with the executive branch and the speakers on, and that is setting aside the 50% of the state revenues. Well, that's Scott's, setting aside 2.83% of each county's shared tax revenue for school construction in the fast-growing counties. That's all I'm aware of. If there's any others, no one's talked to me about it.
A real estate transfer tax.
Yeah.
Representative Sparks.
Yeah. Chairman, we had finance today, and Dr. Baum's chairman of the committee. We had the sports and waging council in there, lottery folks in there, and I made the comment to our whip that sits beside me, Johnny Garrett. Johnny's a sharp guy, and I was telling him our county and what we're dealing with and the cost and the growth, and I was asking, hey, can we tweak this? Can we do this? He says, good luck with that, because all these other rural counties will definitely fight you, and Will knows that. And I don't think there's enough of us to offset them, but I asked the attorney about the lottery, and here's what she responded to me. She said, per our conversation, the privilege taxes collected from sports betting is allocated as follows: 80% to the Lottery Education Fund. Could that be tweaked? 5% for the Department of Mental Health. It's an important issue. Chairman Harris knows that. 15% to local governments. Now, I don't know how much Rutherford County is collecting from the lottery funds to local governments. Does anybody have that figure? Because that's $3 billion worth of waging the past 4 years, so I'm told. The 15% that goes to local government, she said, goes to both cities and counties based on population from the last federal census. Funds that remitted to local government must go into the city or county general fund and be used for emergency services or local infrastructure. Local infrastructure projects, she highlights, includes transportation and road projects and public buildings. I'm assuming schools are included in public buildings, so that's TCA 449-104. Could that be tweaked? Is that an angle we can come at? I think we got to come at it from several different angles, Will, and I think you agree. It's frustrating for me because I see so many problems. I had someone in the office the other day, I won't say their name, and they're talking about all the growth, all these new students. I think it was 700 new students. And I asked a question. I know it's not a very politically correct question to ask. I said, well, how many of those students are undocumented? And this person said, we can't talk about that. I said, what do you mean you can't talk about that? If you've got a problem, you've got to have dialogue. You've got to have discussion. I see where Texas, I pulled this up where the AG Paxton was talking about illegal immigration is costing those taxpayers $850 million each year. $850 million each year. I'm half immigrant. My mother's from Scotland. This is the issue, and somebody needs to talk about it. Maybe we can get a resolution on that. Chairman, going back on the resolution you sent, mental health's been a big issue for a lot of us. A lot of us care about these issues. Our last meeting, y'all have heard me probably say this. I know the state of Tennessee has heard me say it because I've said this quote several times. We put together an opioid mental health town hall at Parkway Baptist Church a couple of years ago. And this is something that's alarming that we all need to have. This needs to be on the table. This is from the late Dr. Linda Gilbert, school superintendent. Knew more about education than probably any lawmaker in the state of Tennessee, I promise you. She says we need more funding for counselors. She said we need help with the social emotional issues we're seeing. In other areas, social workers are vital in many schools. Districts are not able to fund them. I think it would be helpful for him and other legislators to talk with school superintendents about the issues we're seeing in very young children here. Here's what's alarming, that everyone needs to know this. Maybe Scott, well, I think Scott did report it one day. Thank you, Scott. The behaviors of our 6 to 9-year-olds are like something I've never seen before. This is a 50-year educator with a doctorate degree. She said they are inordinately disruptive and aggressive. And while we're bringing all our resources into play, there's no place for these children to go to be assessed. She said, I do feel good about what the Department of Education is trying to do. And we got to place emphasis on the whole child, not part of the child, the whole child. So there's a lot of serious issues that, I'll be honest, I really wish that one of you commissioners would say, let's send a resolution about mental health. Let's send a resolution about immigration that's costing the state of Texas $850 million. If we got 700 new students, that's what, a half school, Commissioner Wilson, about a half a school? We got a serious problem that needs to be talked about. I say start a collaboration. CTAS is supposed to be here. Is anybody from CTAS come, County Technical Assistance? Has anybody reached out to CTAS? That's much like TASER. You know, I've had 3 TASER studies. All of them, well, the latest one is the affordable housing TASER study. And to be honest with you, taxpayer-funded lobbyists worked against my TASER study. I use the word nefarious. I've been using that a lot, Chairman. Nefarious. It's a big word, but I see a lot of nefarious things going on. It's nefarious. So I'm really taking your resolution seriously, but please take immigration seriously and the mental health seriously and the juvenile crime seriously, because we can't do this by ourselves. We got to have y'all. And I know the chairman is passionate. Man, I love your passion, Chairman. But we got to have all hands on deck. Start a committee, a collaboration that meets every week if you have to, or once a month, just like TASTR does, Chairman. CTAS needs to be here. What are we paying them for? These other lobbyists that's in this book right here, get them to give you a return on investment. What have you done for us? Write a report. What have you done for us last year? Did you improve public safety? Did you improve mental health? What'd you help with? I promise you, if I'm paying anybody $1, I know what I paid for. I guarantee Anthony Johnson does too, because I know he's a pretty frugal guy. We've done some business together. But Chairman, it's all hands on deck. All hands.
So, some of y'all touched on some of the things. We're kind of get all over. So we got some questions. It might sound repetitive because y'all kind of touched on it a little bit. I'm going to let Chairman Phillips ask a question, and I'd really like to hear some of y'all what y'all think about it, because I have some ideas on it as well. You're recognized, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Some of the presentation that was made at the Chamber of Commerce dealt with all of us dealing with the same type of people. Representative Terry, you say we maybe don't communicate with you as much as we should. We communicate with our next door neighbors every week of every single solitary month. Every week of every single solitary month. What they're telling us is what we're trying and have been trying to do for years, is to put us in a position to meet the needs of those neighbors. I'm not asking a question, and I apologize for that. Let me just say, one of the things that we've asked before, and I know it's come with Charlie, and I know it's come with Mike, Representative Baum and Representative Sparks, is that there seems to be a tremendous amount of lottery money out there. The counties that are overburdened with brick and mortar, and let me just say, what we're asking you for is brick and mortar money. Property taxes go for reoccurring expenses. It's my philosophy, always has been and always will be. One-time occurring expenses, like impact fees, go to pay for brick and mortar, for us to pay for the infrastructure, for us to pay for the schools. That's what we want, is those opportunities to help pay for those schools, brick and mortar, not reoccurring expenses. The resolution, and I know some of you said I can't support it, but what we're asking for is the exact same authority that our municipalities have, nothing more. Give us the opportunity to utilize that tool. Let me get back to this question about lottery funds. Since we're having to pay, it appears like $140 million to build a new high school right now. If there's funds available in the lottery, why can't the state help us as a county? I don't mean to pay for it, but why can't we borrow money from you guys, from the state, pay you back over a period of time at a lesser interest rate than the banks are charging us? That's the type of thing that you guys could help us do. Let us borrow money from that. Let us borrow money from you, pay you back at an interest rate over a period of time. It's not going to cost you anything, but it's going to save the county and the taxpayers of the county millions of dollars. That's my question. Is that possible? Is it possible? I've asked it before, haven't got an answer, but those are the type of things, if you really want to help us, you could help us do if it's at all possible. Once again, to build Blackman was $54 million. We built that 3-school complex, including the property, for $54 million, and it's costing us $140 million to build a high school right now. $140 million. And that's what the problems are we're facing. It's not property taxes and paying for reoccurring expenses. It's paying for brick and mortar. And that's what we're asking for your help for. And let me be real specific about that. That's what our neighbors are telling us to do. That's what they're telling us to do, and we're begging for your help. Carry a bill. I don't care if it doesn't pass the state. We're asking you to help us. Carry a bill. If you do that and it doesn't pass, we'll pat you on the back, kiss you on the cheek, and say thank you. Thank you, thank you for doing what we've asked you to do. Years ago, our legislative delegation said, you bring me a request with two-thirds majority, and we'll carry a bill. Something seems to have happened over the past 20 years to change that. We brought you a couple of different resolutions that have passed 21-0. This one passed 20-1. It wasn't unanimous, but it's pretty close. So getting back to the question, is it possible for you to carry some type of bill or legislation allowing growth counties like us that are in multiple building situations? Schools, we're going to have to build jails. We're going to have to build facilities to actually detain juveniles. We're going to have to do things that would relate to brick and mortar like most people couldn't imagine. So is there possible from a school perspective that we could use funds that are created by the lottery to borrow, build those schools, and let us pay you back instead of paying the bank back? I'm sorry for getting on my soapbox. I really am. But we're asking for your help again. What we try to do is focus you guys on growth taxes. Give us that flexibility and keep you focused on that. That's what I'm asking you to do, is focus on that. You present a bill, if it doesn't pass, you've done your job. We've done our job, and let the chips fall where they may.
Representative Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer several of the things you said, would I support lottery, the Hope Scholarship going towards locals? Most certainly I would. Would I support, another question similar along that is, would I support a portion of the current state sales tax going to schools, as I described earlier? Yes, I would. As Representative Bob said earlier, though, getting the other, there's about 11 real fast-growing counties. It's about, I think, about 12 that has impact fees or some type of development tax. They're not all impact fees. Getting the other counties to go along with it and give up, because anything that the big counties ask for, the rural counties think they're giving up something. It's like when I was proposing this about setting aside part of the state sales tax revenue, 2.83%, which is a lot because it's $515 million is what the state gets out of Rutherford. Setting aside that for all these fast-growing counties, I immediately started getting calls from rural small counties that have 20, 30, 50. They said, where's our share? What are we going to get? Well, that's going to drive the cost up from like 35 to 40 million up to 70, 80 million. And getting that through the budget's hard. And I was told by a Senate finance person that I called and discussed it with, he said, well, if you can identify 35 to 50 million in cuts out of the state budget to pay for that, we have a serious conversation. And I told him a couple of areas where I would cut the budget, and he said, "Whoa, I don't know about that." So anyway, that's negotiations. So one thing I would say, we're about 2.5 weeks away from the cutoff, the 31st of filing bills, and it usually takes a good 3 to 4 weeks at minimal, getting something through legal and getting it right and negotiating with all the parties to get it where it could pass, if it could pass at all. We've had 8 months since we got out of session, and no one's asked for a meeting to sit down and say, can you give us specifically this? And I'm not talking about a resolution. I'm talking about specific details of sitting around a table and say, where can we discuss this? Where can we discuss that? I've had a lunch over the last 8 months with 3 county commissioners And I've asked questions about the budget, and they've told me about the budget, and we've discussed certain things, but we weren't negotiating it. And then Chairman Harris, we've had about 2 or 3 conversations on the phone, but we haven't been negotiating anything, and we haven't sat around it serious. We also met, I think some of the leaders met 1 or 2 times with some of the builders, developers, realtors, I believe. I wasn't in that meeting. Then we met with them separately once, and we've kind of pushed some things out and tried to negotiate a little bit. And it's kind of hard because of people's interpretation of the what is it, the
Sunshine Law.
Sunshine Law. I'm kind of interpreting it differently than your lawyers are, but where we can't just sit around, and maybe that's a resolution that really should have been passed as amending the Sunshine Law so that we can all sit together and talk, other than a meeting like this, because this isn't a meeting that, you know, once every year, and we've asked every year that I've been down here 7 years, and I used to sit in the audience and listen to, please don't do this at the end of the year when we don't have time to do anything. And here we are with session already started. And even if we all agreed tonight on something, it's going to be very hard to get anything written if we had a solution to everyone's problems right now and get it through. So given the fact that, I mean, during the 8 months, other than all of us been mentioned on Facebook and at meetings and committees, there hasn't been a meeting for us to sit down and discuss. Or even when you pass the resolution, it would have been a lot more helpful to you and to us if we had tried to talk about the resolution and you pass a resolution that we could actually agree to or get passed. And I wish, like I think it was Representative Terry said, we need better communications. And I hope in the future we have that, whatever we get. Now, there is a lot of things. Luckily, there are bills that have been filed. I've got bills that are in process. Others, Scott Sapicki has bills. There's other bills. So those bills, as long as they're within the code that they've been written under, can be amended, and certain things can be changed. But we're usually tied to whatever that bill, whatever part of the code that bill opens is all we can address in that bill, so we can't just change it to anything. And as far as the budget that Chairman Phillips mentioned, probably another member would be better. I'm not on the finance and budget, but they might be better to see what's viable, what isn't viable. But I think what Senator White said about earlier is it's very hard to get all the counties to agree to something, and nobody wants to waste their time in the legislature and spend political capital fighting for a bill that we know it isn't going to pass on the floor or isn't going to pass the other chamber. So it's best over that, like I said, that 8 months between sessions, or really that we tried to negotiate, because even if we had something we'd met in June and we all agreed to, and working it out with legal and working it out with all the parties involved, both at the state and local level, because I personally have been talking to realtors, developers, builders, elected officials, people from other counties, and throughout the summer at different levels. And when I get the locals here to agree, the state won't agree, or the state agrees and locals won't. And it's not just the builders, developers, it's also other elected officials. It's hard to get everybody to agree, so we need time. Then once we come to an agreement, let's say we had an agreement in June. In order to get it passed, we have to make phone calls when we're out of session and try to get support for the bill. If we just write a bill and spring it on the committees, it doesn't give us time to win the votes. That's why, as my other members said, we need time, we need better communications, and we need you to cooperate with us and work with us before the end of the year so we have time to get something done. But thank you.
Anybody else? Senator Wright?
The lottery money mostly goes for Hope Scholarship, Tennessee Promise, and Tennessee Reconnect. Last year was the first year that the Hope Scholarship and Promise was in the red. It's because of the investments are down where we have the money. So until we can get those in the black, because of course high school seniors are depending on Hope and Promise to further their education. So right now the lottery money is pretty much tied up just because of the investments. The people are still playing the lottery, so that's not down, but because of how the state has the money invested for the first time since we introduced, of course we introduced the Hope first and then the Promise and then Reconnect, but they were in the red last year, and so we need to get them in the black.
Senator Reeves?
Yeah, so Commissioner, I think I said this even at the chamber a few weeks ago, I'm willing to evaluate every option that's out there. anything. I'm willing to evaluate any. I'm willing to carry and introduce legislation. But I think at the end of the day, we just need to run it through a few filters. And number one, is it going to make a difference? Is if we pass something, is it going to be impactful for the county? Number two, is it forward thinking? Is it short thinking? Because the commission's wary of this too, year after year. So let's put some things in place that can have some staying power. And I think the third thing is, and I think they've said this multiple times, can we pass it? And I think, to your point, I think if we do our part, then maybe that's enough. But I think that's important. Is it impactful? Is it forward-thinking? And can we pass it? Those are really the big three filters. But I'm absolutely willing to look at multiple options and to introduce legislation to try to make a difference in this. And we'll see what happens.
Representative Terry?
That's exactly the answer I'm looking for. Thank you.
Representative Terry?
Thank you. And I do want to point something out, and Chairman Phillipson, I think you have, hearing what you said, one of the things you said, just running a bill that, as he said, has no chance of passing, committing seppuku, dying on the sword up there, that's not necessarily practical. And as I go through my process, what's the problem? What's the premise? That's where we need y'all's help on. You said, talking to us. I'm not sure. I'm going to give you a compare and contrast. Last year, there was a bill that the city had that they wanted me to be involved in, and different than what y'all had last year. They came. I got a phone call from the mayor. He didn't have all the answers, and he had his lobbyist and his team come to my office. We sat down. I had my assistant there, walked through all the issues. I sent them back with multiple questions on this. They emailed me back answers on this, and I went through that, and I wasn't necessarily sure that I liked all their answers, asked for clarification. Then they went back and got more information for me to clarify that stuff, and those are type of conversations, open invitation that we've had to meet with you. I don't think you and I have ever sat down and had a meeting. I'm not sure you've ever given me a phone call. I don't even know if I've had an email. So it's an open invitation, but we need that communication and help from you guys to sit down. This last session, like I said, none of the lobbyists came to our office to have this type of dialogue. So those are the type of things we need to have to give us direction on what we can have moving forward. We want to help, but we need to have that communication. Thank you.
Anybody else want to hit that? Charlie? Good. All right.
I got some. Hey, Chairman. Going back to what Chairman Phillips mentioned, I'll run a bill on that. I'll run a caption bill. We just kind of get your legal department to kind of help us, because Dr. Baum and I were talking. We don't know if funds can be borrowed against that. The lottery funds. But I just see where college enrollment's down 8%. Can that figure be tweaked, Will, to instead of 80% to 78%? Does 2% help? Going back on the Sunshine Law, I know Chairman Pettis and I have talked about this, because I've brought up ideas of let's get together and let's do a few things where we have dialogue. Maybe we're not deciding, really deliberating, but at least you've got some more communication. If your legal guy could help us get an opinion on that, or one of us get an opinion on that, that can be looked at. One thing that I'm sitting beside an economist right here, Dr. Baum, also chairman of finance, sharp guy. But there's $2 billion in the rainy day fund, $2 billion. Well, I think it's raining. I think we're in a crisis. If we're not in a crisis now, you're going to be in a crisis in 6 months. I heard John DeBerry speak this morning at our prayer meeting, Chairman. John DeBerry marched with Dr. King, if y'all know who John is, and John quoted Dr. King. He said, we've arrived in different boats, but we're all in the same boat together. In fact, I videoed him this morning. It's on YouTube. Type in Mike Sparks, John DeBerry on YouTube. You'll see him in front of the Capitol. But let's have an ongoing discussion, and let's get CTAS involved. I've wanted to run a task force study about what can we do to free up seats in school. I think school choice is an option that can help. Maybe if you've got a large development, maybe the developer helps facilitate a building that can be used for a hybrid online classes. There's that does happen in some other states. I mean, those are areas that I think we need to explore, Chairman. You know, Representative Rudd made some good points. We're only 11 counties that are growing. You've got all these others that we'll have to battle, and you could spend all the money you can on lobbyists. You could have an army up there, and it's going to be difficult. I've got an army of lobbyists working against my mental health bill, but I'm going to pass a bill because, one, it's the right thing to do if you want to look it up. It's hospital bed accountability, updating the bed portals, because we got a mental health crisis. That's why I wish y'all would run a resolution supporting me on that, because I got the strongest lobbyists working against me. But I'm going to pass the bill. It may not be this year, Will. It's going to be next year. Look it up and write it down. Scott Broden, you write down that bill's going to pass. But I need Scott Broden's help to get it to pass. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, let's sit back here for a minute. We're all over the place a little bit, and that's my fault, and I want to apologize to everybody in here. One of the things that are the most important thing that we're all talking about is schools. Jeff touched on it, $140 million, but we're also getting money from the state in the form of TISA. So Chairman McAdoo had a question on this. I'll let Chairman McAdoo ask it. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe Representative Rudd talked about some of it, and the only thing I'm curious about is what is the status of TISA this coming year? Any one of you can give me a summary of it.
Sure. Representative Baum?
I'll give you an update. I'll rewind just a little bit. We've talked a lot about education. The state really does care about supporting education, and one of the biggest things we've done in the history of this state is allocate $1 billion additional dollars in 1 year in recurring new money for education. The way we allocated it was with a new funding formula called TISA, so that's what we're talking about. We switched from an old funding formula called the BEP to a new one called TISA, and it came with it $1 billion additional dollars. Rutherford County's share of that was around $57 million new recurring dollars for the Rutherford County school system, and then another $9 million recurring dollars for the Murfreesboro school system. Part of that included a pot of money for growing school districts to pay for new enrollments that were unexpectedly higher. This pot of money was amounted to $35 million, and Rutherford County got their share of this. I think they got about $4.8 million from this pot of growth funds. I suppose the money maybe ideally would have gone to build new schools. Rutherford County got the money, and I think is actually using it to finance the cost of education for the new students that had entered the school system that year. Looking forward, TISA will be fully funded in this coming year, and the amounts that I have told you will be recurring. And so Rutherford County will continue to receive this new money. One thing that the House Finance Committee is going to need to address is adding more money to this pot for growth funds. I said just a moment ago that this last fiscal year we put $35 million in there, and Rutherford County's share of that was about $4.8 million.
For the classrooms.
It was for classrooms.
First before the building.
That's right. We need to add more money to this pot, and as we do, Rutherford County, you can see, will get a significant share of it. It looks like Rutherford County got about 15% of the money we put in this pot last year. So as I guess I would assume that as we add more money to this pot for growing school districts, Rutherford County might continue to get around 15% of that money.
Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. And to add to that, this is kind of going back to what I'd said earlier, doing this is closer in session. It actually is counterproductive because we're talking about things that are being negotiated behind the scenes in the budget now. And people who would be against high-growth counties getting money that want it for their own, now they know. So it's not always good everything to be out in the open what we're doing until negotiations are finished. But there are efforts between the House and Senate leadership and the governor to put more money in this growth fund and target it towards building and maintenance and construction. And that is negotiations that are currently going on.
Well, my question is, you know, state of Tennessee legislators are now contemplating not taking federal funds from the Department of Education, which I believe is around $1 billion. So if we already have a freeze right now on monies, how is that going to affect us as far as TISA funding that and all that?
I was on that committee.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let me go with Senator White.
Yeah, she's on education.
Yes. I don't want to cut you off if you want to go first, Representative Rudd.
No, the only thing I was going to say is I was going to tell the Chairman Harris, I've been hearing about this for the last 3 or 4 months, but I hadn't seen anything about it. I keep hearing, I know down the road it's always said we would like to, whether it be transportation, building roads, or education or anything, just to cut the federal government out of everything so we can do what we want, because every single dollar we get from the federal government that we pass on to you has strings attached. What we can and can't do with it, how we can spend it, what we can spend it on, what we have to teach, what the curriculum is. So I know in virtually every category from agriculture on up, we'd like to be able to fund everything on our own and not accept federal money for anything, but the reality is we have to. But Senator White can explain that more. But yeah, I've been hearing these numbers, but I don't know anything about them myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was on that joint study committee that met in November about whether to do away with the funds or not. I do not want to speak for the House, but I will say with the Senate, we released a report with us, all of the senators signing it, and it was Democrats and Republicans all signing the report, saying there was too many questions that could not be answered. No one could even give us a true number. It was $1.2 billion we were going to lose, all the way up to $1.8 billion we were going to lose. Then no one could tell us if we didn't take this pot of money, were we going to get this pot of money. No one could truly tell us the free and reduced lunch program, how that would impact, because a lot of that money comes from the Department of Agriculture. So no one could give us straight answers, and because we were the first state to ever consider doing this, there was too many unknowns for the Senate to actually support giving up the federal dollars.
Okay. So it's kind of like you're just dealing with it right now, but it's nowhere. We're a ways away from everything.
Right now,
it's just people in the newspaper scaring everybody. Would that be?
Well, I mean, I don't want to assume anything, and I don't know why they wrote what they wrote, but right now, the state of Tennessee does not have the money that we have had in the years past. This is going to be a very tight budget. They have told us that anything with a fiscal note on it that comes back that would require funding for your bill, not to plan on it passing, basically, is kind of what they've told us, because it is going to be a very, very tight budget. We had to put in over $300 million just to close out the books for last year, and so the revenues have not come in like they have in the years past. So we know this is going to be a tight year, and I do not believe that we have the 1.2 to 1.8, and yet no one could tell us an exact number. There was some departments that said 1.2, there was some people that testified said 1.8. No one could tell us for a fact what it would be, but we do not have that money currently, I think, to give up.
And Craig, I can speak for the House. I think the proposal's dead in the House. There is no interest in this on the House Finance Ways and Means Committee.
That's what we wanted to hear. Commissioners, there's questions that you want to ask. We have really touched all over these questions. So a lot of them we'd be asking, we'd be saying, you know, what we've already discussed. So I'm going to go to Commissioner Rather and ask his question.
I get the dirty question. How can the state help counties with policing litter problems, such as raising fines?
Baum?
No, well, I don't know if y'all remember, I passed that bill last year when y'all asked me, the previous county commission. I was going to ask Commissioner Boyd if he'd pass this out, or McMurray if he could help pass it out. What this bill does, if y'all could just pass out the county to the commissioners. This is Bill 2424. It amends Title 39. It's called Mitigated Criminal Littering, which increased it to Class B misdemeanor, punishable by a fine of $500. Deleted the $50 fine, so it increased the fine, gives judges a little bit more discretion. He'll be passing out, but we passed that last year. I talked to Superintendent Cope today and David Gammon, who used to run the litter crew, and I appreciate y'all bringing back that position, by the way, and I think maybe that was Commissioner Johnson and Boyd and some others that pushed for that, and I appreciate that, because he's told me that the littering that they've picked up is down. So I don't know if it's just that resource has been out there to help. To be honest, I don't think people that illegally dump know what laws we're passing. But what David does, and a lot of y'all know this, I think there's somebody else has that position, Commissioner Gammon would do, is they'll dig through that trash and they'll get that envelope or whatever, that bill. And the late Bart Smith used to do that. Chairman Phillips remembers Bart Smith. Y'all remember Bart Smith. I thought that was an effective job that he did. But we did pass that. But I was asking, I think it was Gammon, he thought public service announcements, and he thought well, I don't want to quote him, but maybe some of this needs to be in Spanish. I'm just saying, because they found a lot of illegal dumping from folks that just didn't know where to dump. And the Weak Lane Convenience Center that y'all have passed, I think it's the best decisions that have been made at this county commission, the history of the county commission. Chairman Phillips is moving that convenience center over there to where Major Walls used to have the country club. That's been convenient. Anthony was out there saying hello to people. Carl was saying hello to people. And it seems to be working. It's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. Many thanks to the county commission for the funding for that. But I think we can pass a law, make it $10,000 fine. These people are still going to illegally dump. But I know Superintendent Cope is making an effort. He's making a dent, improving the convenience centers to make them convenient, not inconvenient. Great idea, McAdoo. Make them convenient, not inconvenient, you know. But that's House Bill 2424 that I passed with y'all. Y'all asked me to pass that bill, and we carried it, passed it last year. Thank you, Commissioner Rather.
Last year, again, it's now Public Chapter 899. We took it from a Class C misdemeanor and a $50 fine, and with that Public Chapter 899, I would encourage you to look at it. It is now a Class B misdemeanor with a $500 fine.
And good question. That's something that my constituents have asked about as well, and I had looked into that and talked to TDOT about that, and the way it had been explained to me was they have, there's like 4 cycles they do for mowing and 4 cycles that they do for litter, and they try to time it with that, but if there are any extra issues for you see things like that, let us know. They had funds last year to send out extra have an extra cycle that they went through, but if you have something, anybody's district that you notice something like that, let us know and we can see if they have the funds to send somebody else out.
All right. Well, let's see. Commissioner P., ask your question, sir.
Well, aim for something a little bit lighter, maybe. Do you support legislation that would require citizens to register their vehicles in the county where they reside?
This is already a law and on the books. It's TCA 55-4-105, and it requires the person living in the county to register in the county. And it also gives, and this is specific to Rutherford County. Actually, it was passed by Senator Ketchum and at the time Representative Rowland, that if you are caught and have to register in that county, you have to go back. If it's 3 years that you had Bedford County tags and lived in Rutherford County, you have to pay 3 years of the tax in order to get the proper Rutherford County tags. You have to pay the additional years that you went out of county plus that year as well.
How do you enforce that? I mean, I agree with what you're saying. That's good. I just wonder how you can enforce that, or what legislation, or is that a county problem?
Again, it's in law, it's in TCA, so therefore it would be up to the county to enforce that.
Okay. All right. Well,
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on that, isn't part of that legislation making it somewhat illegal for another county to issue tags from a non-resident of that county? Isn't that part of that legislation? I thought that it was.
Chairman, if I could, I think that was because we had emissions and people were leaving, and we've ended emissions, thank God, which helped a lot of folks, especially the poor. But I think that's one reason folks were going outside to register their cars if they wouldn't pass. So I don't think we have that dilemma anymore. My understanding is that position that y'all came back with, Bart's old position, would help on that wheel tax to enforce it. My understanding, Chairman, was that teachers and folks that worked here, I thought they had to register their vehicles here. That's what I remember when I was on the commission. That's what I thought. But Bart would watch that. If y'all remember years ago, he would go by the schools and he would watch folks bringing their kids over that
Like the question
lived outside.
was, if I live in Rutherford County and wanted to go to Coffee County, which has zero registration or wheel taxes, and if someone from Coffee County sold me that, they were violating whatever that act was. That county that sold those were violating the act. I thought that was part of it. I may be wrong.
Not sure.
That was. Do you know?
I don't know the answer to that. Be a question for the clerk, Lisa Crowell, maybe. Ask her, Chairman.
We could ask legal and get back to you or Chairman Harris to let you know.
yeah, please. Thank you. All right. I want to go to Commissioner Reed and touch, if we can, on public safety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and representatives and senators. We do appreciate you being here tonight and being with us and answering our questions. Since I became a commissioner, I have been a part of the Public Safety Committee. And through those years, I have also worked under 3 different mayors. And I've always noticed that come budget time, whenever the mayor would request the department heads to come forward and present their budgets, whenever they would come to their offices, they would always say, okay, how much are you going to give us back? Because it seemed like public safety a lot of the times, whenever we had to look for cuts within our budget, public safety seemed to be catching a lot of that at different times, because we know the importance of schools, we know what we had to do there, we know the demands upon what has to be done through the schools and going that direction, and public safety seemed a lot of times to be a place that we seem to cut so many times. So what I wanted to bring to your attention this evening, to let you know a little bit about how through the growth we've had in Rutherford County, how public safety has expanded within what we have to do here. So I wrote my question out because I thought it might be easy to do this, because I might do like we have the tendency to do, is walk off in the weeds sometime and go that direction, because I'm so dedicated to what I think our first responders and those who work within for our public safety do. So I wrote it down saying, when we discuss the continued need for county funding, naturally the conversation centers around the cost involved in education and those that come through our schools as related to the county's overall budget. However, when you look at a county the size of Rutherford that is growing towards a future of 500,000 rapidly, you must consider public safety as a major concern as well. The county ambulance dispatch volume has risen to approximately 4,000 calls a month. Our fire and rescue department dispatches 864 a month. With this year alone, we've had over 9,000 calls. The sheriff's department, their total calls for service in 1 month was 6,406. PAWS, our animal rescue, during the month of November, completed 1,263 calls, not to only the county, but all cities within, and this doesn't count the involvement of the Correctional Work Center, juvenile detention, and the recovery and probation courts. Each month, these department numbers continue to climb, with calls progressing as well. As populations grows, this needs for help from its citizens also grows. And not everyone who arrives here comes with perfect intentions in mind. Please explain how you as a state legislative delegation may help us in dealing with this total uncontrollable cost that's just cutting the budget can become a non-workable, dangerous position. By the way, our adult detention facility ages 3 years a year due to 24/7 use, and the future shows that a new jail may be on the horizon within the coming years. Let me also say that what we deal with in public safety within the county, we're dealing with 400 square miles within Rutherford County when you take out the cities that are involved there and what they have to do. When you talk about the fire and rescue, they have a budget of $11 million for that 400 square miles compared to the city of Murfreesboro, who has a little over 60 square miles, and their budget is somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million. We are now expanding continually, as I've said right here, each month, and we're seeing it happening all the time. If you'll take just my district on the western side of this county, I have over 100 square miles there. There are many nights in that district alone, there's only one officer there to look after the citizens of that district. And it's not the only district that comes that way. We now have to deal with 840, and when something happens there, we lose a lot of our officers to having to take care of situations there. We're continually having to deal with these situations. The cost is tremendous to the county, and that's what I'm asking. Is there anything here that you know of that can also give us help in that area? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll answer at least from that standpoint. It's a funding issue, but I think going back to safety, I want to point out, and something that I think that where we can have help, not just necessarily financially, but with other issues that we could do on this. And I talk about what's the foundations of safety? And, one of the foundations is, a moral foundation. Do people do what is right? How can we as a society, how can we live up to that where we're doing what's right and the next generation, and to make a deterrence from just steering away from that and committing crime. Another foundation is the judicial foundation. We pass truth in sentencing. And so that's some of the things that, if somebody's going to commit a crime, that's a deterrence if they know that they're going to be sentenced to that crime. The next is an enforcement. You have different states, different cities that want to defund the police. When you do that, you see the rise in crime. And so to your point, everybody having issues with that, with rising costs and stuff like that, how can we help you? How can you, help us, figure out a way that we don't end up defunding the police by default because of rising costs? That's one thing that needs to be worked on. And the last is self-defense or safety, for your public safety, because, they say that, you can't carry there's, when you need a police officer, in seconds count, they're maybe minutes away. And so, protecting our Second Amendment rights, and that's something that obviously we do at the state. So working through those four foundations and finding out ways that we can enhance those protections, I think would help us from a safety perspective.
This morning, Representative Carringer, we had a moment of silence for a deputy that was shot and killed out in Knox County on a domestic call. I've went through the Sheriff's Academy twice, went through TBI's Academy, TDLC's Academy, tried to encourage other lawmakers to go through their Citizens Academy. I'm sure every county commissioner here has went through the Sheriff's Academy. If they haven't, they need to. I've tried to encourage every lawmaker to go through it to kind of see what they're dealing with, Chairman, on response time. And many times those deputies are out there by themselves in an area as huge as yours. I even encouraged one of our lawmakers in Nashville to go to do a ride along with THP, and his response was, Sparks, I've done 14 of them. So I'm not going to tell you who this guy is. Y'all may know what I'm talking about. He did do 14, but it was in the back of a patrol car, not in the front of a patrol car. But the Sheriff's Academy, I think, is great. Y'all have got an awesome Sheriff's Academy here that everyone needs to go through. Going back on the moral decay that we see in our country, I don't know how we fix that stuff. But I can tell you this, it's costing us with jails and prisons. I spoke about it today to the Pro Board. Our prison budget's doubled since I was elected. It's $1.2 billion and growing. Like Chairman Phillips said, the juvenile area, we see this is what Dr. Linda Gilbert's telling us, the 6 to 9-year-olds' behaviors. Well, those 6 to 9-year-olds are going to be 16 and 19. And we ain't got enough money to build prisons and jails, so we got to reach these young people. The public safety building that you've encouraged and advocated for, I think that's a step in the right direction. But we've got a rash of guns out there that are stolen. I had the gun safe bill. It may not mean a lot to some people, but it's an incentive tax cut. But I went to a guy's funeral. Guy's name was Kyle Yorlet. I don't know if y'all know who Kyle Yorlet was. You need to know who he was. He was shot with a stolen gun. I went to that young man's funeral. Seen it in the news. I just had a feeling to go to his funeral. Sounds strange, McAdoo. I just went to the guy's funeral, didn't know him. And I thought, Lord, there's a reason I'm here. And then I get asked to carry this bill. And we passed the bill, Will. It had been filed, I think, 4 or 5 years and never passed. And by the grace of God, it passed. We got to get these stolen guns off the streets. Man, the behaviors of these, it ain't just 16s, it's 12-year-olds. Commissioner Hall back there, former commissioner, former detective, he could attest to that. The behaviors of these kids, it ain't like it was when we were growing up. It's changed. I don't know how we solved the problem, but I know it's unsustainable to continue to build jails and prisons when it costs $30,000 to incarcerate an inmate. But if every one of your county commissioners should attend your Sheriff's Academy, and every one of us state legislators need to attend it as well. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, we've come to the end. I want to go real quick, if you can. I know a lot of y'all working on a lot of stuff, but I really like to, my last question to y'all is, what legislation are y'all working on that will affect this county? And I'll start with you, Senator Reeves.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. Appreciate the audience. I know it's been a long night. I serve on 3 committees in Nashville. I'm on the Commerce Committee, which is all things business and insurance and banking. I'm on the Health Committee, and I'm also on the Ag Committee because part of my district is also Bedford County, Cannon County, and Moore County. So your question specifically around this county. So I've got a number of pretty big holistic bills specifically in line and dealing with health issues, certificate of need issues, business issues, banking issues. But I guess specifically one thing I hope to do for this county is to try to address some of the things we've talked about tonight. Let's look at a lot of different options that are out there to see what we could possibly get introduced and evaluate and pass that could help the county deal with some of the growth issues. So that's what I'm going to try to do.
Thank you. Senator Terry?
Thank you, and appreciate you guys for having us tonight. Again, Dr. Terry, represent District 48, which is the eastern half of Rutherford County. The county has asked me to help with a purchasing bid threshold bill, and I'm waiting for that information to get to me, but that's something that I'll look forward to seeing and seeing about how we can help the county on that. I've also, going back to safety, this will help a lot of the physicians here in town, but one of the bills I am looking at doing that I did not bring forth during special session, but believe it or not, going through medical school and through training, you don't get a lot of safety training. You don't deal with active shooters or anything like that, and so I've got some legislation that would do continuing medical education through the state for providers to help deal with those type of issues, and that's some things that I'm working on.
Senator White?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for having us. This has been very informative, and glad we were able to do this. I serve on Finance. I'm Vice Chair of Judiciary, and I also serve on Education. And I've been in contact with the Rutherford County School Board and have numerous bills that have been brought to me by the Rutherford County School Board.
Representative Rupp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I'm chairman of Election and Campaign Finance Subcommittee, so I deal with a lot of election laws. Tennessee currently has the most secure election process in the nation, and we're proud of that, and other states are coming here to copy what we're doing. There's always room for improvement, so I have been working throughout the summer with the Director of Elections, the Secretary of State, and election reform activist. I've got 10 bills dealing with election reform, and I'm doing that, and that's been very busy from a wide variety of subjects. Also, I'm dealing with a situation outside of elections on protecting college student information from being shared and sold. It's called data mining. So we're putting a stop to that, and I'm carrying that legislation to protect our students and universities. It has started to happen, to my surprise. A couple of years ago, we did what's called ESG, that's social credit, that's social scores, what your activities are on Facebook or Twitter. They give you a score based on your activities or comments about you. I hadn't even looked what mine is, there's no telling. But a Maryland mortgage company last year started denying mortgages and loans to people who had what they deemed a bad social score. So we addressed that a couple of years ago, that employment could not be denied based on your social credit, I call it credit, social score. And I'm extending that to lender and banking practices, that loans cannot be denied or mortgages denied based on your social score, your activity on Facebook or any other social activity online. Also, I'm working, as I said earlier, I've been all year, since actually during last session, a meeting with the executive branch, with the Speaker, and with Senate leadership to come up with a solution to school funding, construction, to return to the counties. I'm personally carrying a bill that would return that 2.83% in the fast-growing counties to the counties to help in school construction and maintenance. And I'm also been negotiating with other sponsors of other bills to try to work out so we could possibly pass a adjustment to the adequate facilities tax, and to also possibly better deal with inflation. And then I'm working on a couple other education bills and a variety of other minor bills. It's cleanup bills that health care and insurance that I'm working on as well. I'm also on the insurance committee, full and sub, and I'm on transportation. I guess one of the biggest things I was happy about that I negotiated over the summer is I got $38 million from TDOT allocated to widen from Veterans to Coleman Hill to 5-lane out Franklin Road. So I'm happy I got that, and the engineer work's already been done on that, because that was not funded before. It was Williamson County, they're widening to move towards 840, but that last leg was not funded at all, and now I've got it moved up, and TDOT's agreed to fund it, so that work has started. It could be 2 or 3 years before the actual construction starts, but that process is now started and is funded. Thank you.
Representative Baum.
Thank you for having us tonight. I think everybody in this room knows I served 8 years on this commission, and those were 8 great years, and I'm honored and very thankful to have had the opportunity to serve. I serve as vice chair of the House Finance Ways and Means Committee. Mike gives me a promotion occasionally. And today we were in budget hearings from 10:30 until I left for this meeting. We didn't break for lunch. I'm not looking for sympathy. I just want you to know how our day is spent. I think we have gotten the message that this county needs financial assistance from the state, largely for schools and capital projects. We've read the resolution. We know that your first choice, maybe your only choice, is an impact fee without state restrictions. I would like to think that this delegation is going to go back to Nashville and try and negotiate the best deal that we can for you. I think that's the number one thing you're interested in on the Finance Committee. I'm aware of that, and I think we're going to try and do the best we can.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioners, if you don't have my cell number, it's 615-525-3198. I hope Hope has it, Laura has it, I know Commissioner Beverly has it, 525-3198. Years ago, right down here at the City Cafe, I remember seeing Bob Corker down there, Senator, and he says, Sparks, get good at 3 issues. And that sounds good, get good at 3 issues. Sounds good, but when you get to Nashville, it's dozens and hundreds of issues. It may be turkey vultures. That was a big issue for your district and others. It may be some river in somebody else's district that's important to them that you got to listen to. The future of this country, I think, is at stake. I think everything when it comes to funding needs to be on the table. I'll run that bill. I'll file a caption, Will. Please come back and help us. There is merit in advocacy and having an advocate to keep us in the lane, because I'll walk out of here and I'm trying to help a woman get her kids back. 3 kids were taken away from her. Went to juvenile court with her the other day. I hope Scott's going to cover it, by the way. I don't think anybody needs to lose their kids. And the lady works as a nurse over here. That's an issue I'm spending a lot of time on. That's really important to her. When I met with the governor to get him to help me with that gun safe bill, because the Senate, with all due respect to our senators, it wasn't their fault, it was another one's fault. Didn't want to take up anything that said guns. Mine said gun safes. But Trey Hargett was with me, and I was sharing this with the governor when we toured Stonecrest Hospital and we met with Lou Caputo. I don't think Lou would be mad at me sharing his name. Hope he doesn't, Senator Reeves. And I said, I was listening to his problems. He said, man, our ERs are overrun. He said, we've added 16 beds. He said, we got to have relief. We've got to have relief, Dr. Terry. We've got to have relief, Senator Reeves. We've got to have relief. This is what this CEO is telling me. He knows more about that hospital than I do. That's his hospital. Well, next thing you know, we get this bill filed. It's Bill 827. And what it does is just asking Trust Point, Rolling Hills, and the hospitals to update the bed that's available for mental health. That's the high-power lobbyist. It's kind of an honor, Will, when you've got the strongest lobbyist in the state fighting my bill. But it's going to pass. That's what's so cool about it. Y'all watch it. It will pass. It may be next year, Dr. Terry, but it's going to pass, because the pressure is going to be on the people to say, what's going on when we got someone in the ER and you can't get help? And then that person didn't get help. Maybe they go shoot up something. And it ain't a matter of if we're going to have a school shooting. It's a matter of a when. That's how serious this stuff has got. So there's a myriad of issues, myriad of bills that I have. One bill that I am proud of that I need this commission to help me with is our new license plate for a soldier's child. It's the Jeep license plate that we ran. I don't know if y'all have seen the plates out there with the Jeep. It says Explorer, Tennessee. You may not think that matters, but my buddy of mine was killed in Iraq, the late Freddie Hahn. We got the road named after him in front of Nissan. A soldier's child's in my district, in Anthony's district. Let me tell you, if you don't think that matters, tell Darren Mackin. He got $100,000 in revenue, Chairman, $100,000 from the sale of a license plate. Simple license plate. $100,000. He can get 2 employees now. Now we've got another plate called a soldier's child, but I need help to sell that plate. If we can reach that 1,000, that's potentially $200,000 worth of revenue that can help these children when their mom or dad has been lost in military combat. So keep your eye on that, a soldier's child plate and the Jeep license plates. And I know we're short on time, Chairman, so I'll wrap it up. Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you, everybody. Really quickly, it sounds like January is really a poor time to have this meeting. So what quarter of the year would be best? Give us some feedback. Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3?
October.
Yeah, October. That's what I'd suggested earlier.
November. So Q4, early Q4?
You know, any thing like this where you're really needing something, even if it's health care, not impact fees, anything, we need at least 2 or 3 months minimal to work on it. And if it's very expensive, we may need 6 months.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, can we make a note for the next steering to shoot for early Q4 for next year? Sure. So one other quick comment. We talked a lot about communication maybe poor communication back and forth. And a lot of you said, man, open door policy, come see us anytime. That's great, very noble thing to say. But let me ask you what really would be best, because I don't think you want 21 different opinions coming up and knocking at your door, or even 7 different opinions from the steering committee. Because the first thing you're going to do is say, hey, man, Mike Cush came to see me from the steering committee, and you're going to call my steering chairman or the mayor and say, hey, this is what Cush said. Does he have the backing of the committee, or is he going lone wolf here? So you tell me, is it best that the mayor or will carry the message singularly and represent the whole body? Is that the best way for our communication to be back and forth by just a small group? Because I don't really think you want 21 different opinions. So tell us, you help us help you, help me help them get our message at a constant, consistent back and forth. What do you want? What do you really want from us?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. And whether it's one liaison, I mean, whether it's, I keep picking on Jonathan because I've seen him at the Capitol before, or just one liaison, may carry a different message for the county, which may be a different message that the lobbyist has, which may be a different message than the mayor has. And so having one of all three, I think, would be beneficial, at least to me. You guys may have different expertise on certain things like that, but having at least one that is a liaison that we can talk to, that would be willing to come to the Capitol, sit down, work through issues, I think that would be beneficial. I know you guys, when I've talked to our legal services, they say it's not a violation of sunshine law. If I had two of you or 3, if we're talking about state business and it's not anything that you guys are actually going to vote on, it's not a violation. But that being said, if it makes you more comfortable, 1 or 2 that are liaisons to us.
Are the rest of you in that agreement?
Well, Mike, it kind of gets down to what we're talking about. If it's like an individual issue, like give an example, I believe it was last session. The only commissioner that came up to see me in my office was Jonathan Beverly, and he was up there. I think what was it, Red Cross? Boys and Girls Club, wanting revenue for Boys and Girls Club. He was up there with them, because I guess you're on the board or with them. But outside of that, not a single Rutherford County commissioner came to see me at the Capitol and hadn't this year. And I just need to occasionally know, or like I said, I've had 2 commissioners that I've had lunch with, and we've discussed a variety of issues. It wouldn't hurt for you to speak to your representative that's in your area and talk to them occasionally. The problem with, I think, if it's a complicated issue with just like having like the school board has a liaison, a government liaison that comes and talks to us about government things, and of course we talk to all of them, but we're not sure if we're getting the full picture talking to one person, and it's hard to negotiate with 21 people through one person. And some of this is negotiations, or a lot of it, you asked us, can we do this? Any of your leadership can say, are you allowed to do this? How would we do this? And we can have legal check and get back with you. Like I said, I'd check with legal tomorrow and get back with Chairman Harris about the other county tags, whether that's in the bill, I don't know. We'll check on that and get back with you. But we need to find some way, in my personal opinion, that either all of us or a larger portion of us can just kind of like the 7 of us can sit down with you, and not in a meeting like this, but maybe over lunch or dinner, and discuss it. If a law has to be clarified or changed, or we need to look at doing that, because this isn't, the way we're doing it now, I don't think is a productive way unless we can all just kind of sit down over a table and break bread casually and just talk. And if we don't do that, I don't know how we can get complicated issues resolved.
I'll answer that question also. I think that, Mike, what we need to do as a steering committee is we need to kind of have the people who have questions, our 21 commissioners, and then we bring that before the the steering committee, and we talk with them about that. I agree, we need to have a better relationship between us as far as communication, which I'm hearing that's what y'all are saying, so I want to make sure to do it. Go ahead.
And thinking, I don't want to misconstrue anything I'm saying of just having one person, because I don't want to give up the text that I get from Commissioner Harris sometimes. Like during football games or something like that. But anyway, if there's like an issue that you have or something like that, that or a question or something like that, obviously feel free to text. But if there's like an issue that needs to be worked out or something like that, having one person that's a liaison.
No, I'm talking about things like this development tax. You don't need 21 different opinions on the development tax. We all need to come together as a group and have one or two people see you on a regular basis to continually talk about the development tax.
Thank you.
Make sense?
Yes. Can I make one final comment?
We'll discuss that on our next meeting.
One quick comment on that. Probably the worst time for us to have this meeting is right now. We just gavelled in yesterday. I mean, really, we just got started, so January is really tough for us sometimes to do this. If we're going to have detailed discussions like development tax, I mean, I would even be willing to be part of a working group on complex issues like this, and we get together in the summer and how much money do you need? What's the 3, 5, 10-year plan? Let's create a comprehensive, larger solution, and maybe a few of us could be part of it, a few of you could be part of it, and let's work on it together over 6 to 9 months. But right now it's difficult because we gavelled in yesterday, bill filings in 3 weeks, so it's just challenging. That's one reason we did the December 18th meeting, to be honest with you, is to kind of start the conversation earlier.
Well, rest assured, what I heard tonight and what the rest of us heard tonight, we will do a better job in steering and making a longer range plan and get Will involved and lay out steps throughout the course of the year. So,
yeah, like I said, we're gonna move this meeting. We've been doing this for 30 years on January, so we'll definitely move that. I want to thank all of y'all. This has been a long night. I appreciate y'all coming here. We do need to work together better, and as a chairman, I will definitely work on that, and I want to thank each one of y'all. We are adjourned.